Hey guys, it's me Sujoy over here. Hello, good evening. I thought of making this video because I just want to talk about this problem which is going on here in Vietnam. And that problem is that Indian tourists are facing racism in Vietnam. Now, before I continue, I just want to let you know is that I didn't have any plans to make this video, but I came across a video which has got, I think, over 36,000 views, and like it's going viral right now. It's about this this Indian solo traveler and how he experienced racism in Hanoi. I'm going to keep a link of that video down in the description below. So let me just tell you what exactly happened. Okay. So firstly, if you are new to my channel, the name of my channel is called Sujoy in Vietnam. I've been living over here in Vietnam for over 6 years now, and I'm from India. And I was an English teacher before for 3.5 years, and I started my online digital marketing business. And I'm also doing full-time YouTube. So I actually felt very bad watching that video as an Indian, and I'm sure you will also feel very bad. It's just that this has been going on for a long time. It's nothing new. I mean, I've been experiencing racism here in Vietnam for the past 6 years. I mean, it's like, it's like a subtle form of racism, but I think let me just talk about this video of this young Indian solo traveler. Now, he arrived in Hanoi, and everything was going well, and then he had a booking with the backpack hostel. Okay. So apparently what happened is that in his hostel room, I think there were these two white couples. Okay. These white tourist couples, and they actually had intercourse. Like they have bunker beds, right? So this Indian guy was sleeping downstairs, and those white couples were, I think, were upstairs on the top bed, and they were having intercourse. They were having sex. And so what this Indian guy did was that he actually went and complained to the manager of this backpack hostel in Hanoi. It's supposed to be a very famous backpack hostel. Now, what happened to his surprise is that you can see in the clip. Okay, the video is going to be down in the description below. So this lady came, and she actually was threatening this Indian guy, this Indian tourist, and she was like threatening him that I'm going to give you 15 minutes, get the fuck out of the hostel. And she didn't want her to hear anything. It's just, and on those white couples who had sex in the hostel, they were like, they didn't have any problems. But this Indian guy was threatened, and he was like forced to get out of the hostel. And of course, it was definitely wrong. So this Indian guy he was justifying himself, and hats off. Hats off to him, because this is modern India, okay? The problem with Vietnam and other parts of Southeast Asia is that, especially in Vietnam, is that they in general, the people in general, the Vietnamese people in general, they have low regards for Indian tourists for Indian expats over here in Vietnam. They think very poorly of Indian tourists and Indian expats living over here in Vietnam. So what happened is that he was threatened, he was bullied, and he was asked to get the fuck out. Okay, so excuse me for my language, I digress. But this shows the level of discrimination and racism out here in Vietnam, especially in Hanoi, which I've also experienced because in Hanoi they have a lot of Chinese influence, and it's just that I had a lot of problems in Hanoi when it came to customer service. I had frequently encountered a lot of discrimination. Even where I was staying, I had a bit of racism problem over there, and it's just that it's just a very bad vibe. Okay, I don't know why so many Indian tourists like to go to Hanoi, but the dark reality is that not all Indian tourists in general are not being treated well in Hanoi. And the sad reality is that we Indian tourists, we Indians traveling to Vietnam, we are accepting this form of racism and discrimination out here in Vietnam, which is really sad. But anyway, I'll come back to that later. So anyway, he justified, and he even said that, okay, I'm going to call the police. You're asking me to get out. Knowing that he was right, and knowing that the dark reality is that so much of white privilege is out here in Vietnam. If somebody is a white tourist, has got white skin, he or she is treated like a king or a queen. Even that I've seen white tourist men, they wear tank tops, in their pajamas. They can go to any nice restaurants, malls and everything. But if we Indians, we have somebody who has dark brown skin, or if we Indians, we're not given that kind of treatment. We're not given equal treatment. And it's a sad reality that even in the 21st century, racism exists out here in Vietnam. And I have been always saying this for the past 6 years. If you see my previous videos, right? Just type Indian racism in Vietnam. You'll see a couple of my videos. You'll see my experiences. You will see that how I encounter racism in customer service out here in Vietnam. Even here in Ho Chi Minh, you go to these tourist locations like District 1, Indians are not treated properly. But anyway, this guy, apparently he said, and that lady, she was threatening him and slammed the door. And anyway, it's sad that nobody was there to help this Indian person, but I think one Vietnamese person was offering his phone so that he could call the police. So anyway, he checked out of the hostel, and this happens, okay? Like, if you're an Indian tourist, if you're going to stay in hostels or you're going to book with Agoda, booking.com, you will be encountering these kind of situations, right? It's a sad reality that there's a lot of white privilege here in Vietnam. Like a person like me who has got very dark brown skin, especially Vietnam is a very hot country, and I stay in the countryside, so I do experience a lot of racism over here as well. I'm staying here at Long An. My neighbors, they're all racists. They don't talk to me. I'm treated very badly. I've been isolated from the society. And this happens in District 1 also in Ho Chi Minh, these tourist locations. The white tourists are always given the best treatments, even if they're going to the hostels, living in hostels, hotels. The Vietnamese are head over heels for these white tourists. And unfortunately, Indians are treated poorly here in Vietnam. And I don't care what kind of bilateral trade agreements we have with Vietnam or whatever, but the sad reality is there's a lot of racism out here in Vietnam. And knowing that there are a lot of Indian tourists who had visited India, who had visited Vietnam last year, I think, it should have been opposite. It should have been like Vietnamese should have been more welcoming. They should be, because, now the situation is so bad here in Vietnam is that when they look at an Indian tourist or an Indian expat or Indian foreigner type here in Vietnam, they treat them poorly, okay? You go to these tourist markets here in Ho Chi Minh, I've seen Indian tourists being shouted at by the sellers, by these Vietnamese sellers. And I don't know why there's such a big hype for Indians to come to Vietnam. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Thailand is far better when it comes to treating tourists. Sadly, it's not the situation over here, and especially in Hanoi. I was there for 2 months. I had a very difficult time over there. People are very rude, aggressive. I've heard stories of Indians being like some of these Vietnamese, they like to hit the Indian tourists in the bus. I've been hearing these stories, bad experiences. I don't care about the visas. I don't care how relaxed the visas are. I don't care because Indian tourists are spending a lot of money coming to Vietnam. They're buying things and everything. But if the Vietnamese people are treating Indian tourists like this guy, he's just one example. I have seen with my own eyes Indian tourists, Indian families, they've been treated poorly out here. Because the Vietnamese people, they think India is a very filthy country. And there is a big push by these Vietnamese YouTubers. If you type in Vietnamese language, India, which is Ando, okay? You just use Google Translate. Just type English to Vietnamese for India, which is Ando, and you put that on YouTube, you will see a lot of negative videos about India. And these are these racist Vietnamese YouTubers who are coming to India and showing India in a very bad way, in a very bad limelight. This is the 21st century. India is progressing well. This is the modern India, but sadly, the Vietnamese people still are in their primitive thinking that India is filthy, dirty. Indian people smell. They just know about yoga and curry, but they don't know anything else. And this is the reason why Indian tourists are frequently encountering racism here in Vietnam, whether it is Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, and other parts of Vietnam. It's a sad reality, and I think the Indian consulate here in Vietnam, the Indian High Commissioner or the consulate, my request is take up this matter, address it to the Vietnamese officials, because the Vietnamese media in general is pretty negative about India. I mean, it's very, very rare to see some good news. If you look at the Vietnamese media, it's always, they talk about the bad things of India. And even the Vietnamese men, the women, they have a very cold attitude towards Indians here in Vietnam. They're rude, they're aggressive. I'm not saying not all of them, but there are a few Vietnamese who are very nice people, don't get me wrong. But majority of the time, Indian tourists are not getting good experience, okay? It's just that, and it's a sad reality that we're living in a false narrative where all these Indian Instagram influencers, these YouTubers, a lot of subscribers, and these are all travel bloggers. They're all coming to Vietnam and then just showing only the selected things. This is Vietnam, come over, because they want more views, they need more subscribers, and of course they're in the tourism industry, so they have their own political gains out of this. But the reality is different for simple Indian tourists coming to Vietnam. Not all Indian tourists are treated properly. I have heard of stories of Indian tourists and Indian foreigners living out here in Vietnam experiencing racism, discrimination, bad customer service, which is nothing special. And I've been telling this for a long time, that the customer service here in Vietnam is not good at all. And they do these targeted, it's like selective form of racism. When they see some Indian person with dark skin, they will treat them poorly. They have bad views about India. If this is the reality, if this is the case, then I would request Indian tourists not to visit Vietnam. I think it's getting worse. I mean, Thailand is better. I mean, I've been there at least as a tourist market. But if this is the form of racism if Indians are facing, then it is my moral responsibility as an Indian citizen to request you not to visit Vietnam for some time, till the time this racism problem is solved out. I don't want my fellow Indian brothers and sisters facing racism problem here in Vietnam. I've even seen one YouTube video of a Indian female solo backpacker. She faced racism in her hotel. And it's quite often that it's happening in these hostels here in Vietnam, where Indians are facing racism, even in hotels. If you're booking with Agoda or Booking.com, they get bad rooms, they don't get good rooms, and also customer service. Like I said, targeted racism, wherever you go to these coffee shops or whatever, especially in Ho Chi Minh City, also in District 1, it's primarily catered for white tourists, white people. There's a lot of white privilege out here in Vietnam. Vietnamese love white people and they love white skin, but they forget, Indian tourists spend a lot of money out here in Vietnam. So I think it's not going to be good for the Vietnam tourism if Indians are facing racism like this. So I think the Indian consulate should pick up this matter, the Indian High Commissioner or whatever, should actually pick up this matter, because I felt very bad watching that video, and I really want to support this cause. He's just a tourist. I've been living here for 6 years now in Vietnam. I've been facing a lot of racism. I'm always treated poorly in general, just because I have dark brown skin and I look Indian. And I don't want to be, and the reality is I don't find Vietnamese people to be very friendly. They're not friendly. Especially they're not friendly towards Indians. The young generation Vietnamese people, in general, they have a very, they could be modern, but they don't have good thinkings about Indians. They still think India is a very poor country, filthy country. So the mindset is, and even these Vietnamese men and women also in general, they're very rude, and they have that racist attitude towards Indians here in Vietnam, and this needs to stop. I would like to see the Vietnamese government take some serious action to abolish this racism problem towards Indians here in Vietnam. That's my request for my YouTube channels who join Vietnam, to address this in media, to to have a national drive to eradicate this problem. Because I feel bad, a lot of my Indian brothers and sisters are coming to Vietnam, spending a lot of money coming over here and getting poor treatments, getting shouted at, getting treated rudely, thrown out of the hostels, hotels. I'm not making up the story. So I'm going to keep a link of that video down in the description below for you to check it out. And also I'm going to keep a link of one of my previous videos, which I had spoken about a few years back regarding racism, Indian racism out here in Vietnam. So of course this particular individual, Indian tourist, solo traveler, he's got a lot of subscribers. So that is the reason why he's got a lot of views for this video, but I'm not doing it for clout. I really want to support this cause. So my request would be, if this continues, please don't waste your money coming out here to Vietnam. It's a big hype. And screw those Indian influencers and YouTubers coming out here with their political gains to get some clout, because these are travel bloggers. They will obviously show selective images and scenes, but for normal Indian tourists coming out here in Vietnam, it's a different story. So I'm not very happy how this went for this tourist there in Hanoi, because Hanoi usually I found the people to be very aggressive towards Indians. And even over here in Ho Chi Minh, you will encounter racism if you're an Indian tourist, and discrimination, especially if you go to these high coffee shops, malls, restaurants, whatever. You'll not be treated well. I mean, sadly, it's that white privilege. And that's the reason why many YouTubers, they don't talk about the reality of this racism problem out here in Vietnam. So I want to end this video right now, and just make sure to support this cause. And I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to my channel, but I just wanted to let it out, because I'm also from India, and I feel bad if my fellow brothers and sisters are getting treated poorly out here in Vietnam. And if this continues, I think we should do the same for Vietnamese tourists back in India. And these racist Vietnamese YouTubers should stop coming to India and showing India in a very bad way. So that's the sad reality. So you guys have a blessed evening. This is me, Joy, signing out. Peace out.